Welcome to the Endo Belly Girl podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Chavez. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner and restorative wellness practitioner on a mission to change the way that we support women with endometriosis. Endo is a full-body disease that impacts your mind, body, and spirit in countless ways that aren't often addressed the way that women truly deserve. We are here to talk about all of it. Please keep in mind that the content of this show has been created for educational purposes only and should never be used as a replacement for medical diagnosis or treatment. Hello, my friend, and welcome back to the Endo Belly Girl podcast. So recently, I've had a few interview episodes that were happening in April for my fertility series, which was a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that I was able to put that together. I got so much positive feedback, especially from those of you who are currently going through your own fertility journeys. But I am excited to get back to doing a few solo episodes. I have some fun stuff planned for you coming up, and I can't wait to share. But before we dig into that, let's just catch up a little bit. I feel like since I have been doing these interview episodes, I haven't really talked to you guys much about what's been going on behind the scenes and all of that good stuff. So my month of April and early May here, as we're going into that, has been just filled with onboarding some new clients into my one-on-one practice, which I absolutely love. It's one of those things that just, I feel like, I know that sounds weird, but it's so much fun for me to really dig into people's health and what's been going on in their bodies and in their journeys and just kind of putting all the puzzle pieces together and most importantly, helping people to get to a place of actually feeling better in their bodies, seeing those positive results. And that really is the most rewarding part of what I do. So really love doing that one-on-one work. It's been super fun to onboard some new clients into that. I do have a few spots still available in my one-on-one practice right now, although I will probably be very soon closing that off and having a wait list. So if you have been thinking about it, if you're one of those people who has been kind of contemplating it and maybe someday I'll do that, just heads up that I am probably going to be closing that off before too long here. Because I am also at the moment getting ready to launch my new membership, which I am super excited about. So I know that one-on-one work is not necessarily accessible to everybody due to finances or, whatever else may be going on in your life. So I have decided to launch, due to noticing a need for this, a membership that's going to be a much lower cost, a much lower price point than the one-on-one work, called the Endo Warrior Circle. That's going to be coming your way in June of 2024. So just stay tuned for that. Make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast. You'll definitely hear more about it this way. If you're on my email list, you will be sure not to miss it. So if you go in and download my ultimate guide to building your own endometriosis diet, which you can find in the show notes or at www.endobellygirl.com. Either way, you can find that. And as you get that guide, you will then be added to my email list where you will definitely be the first to find out about any further details. I do also have a waitlist going for that. So anybody who's on the waitlist will get first access, and you can actually find the link to join the waitlist right in my show notes as well. So be sure to hop on there, and I can't wait to share more about that and get that up and running very soon. Now today, what we're going to be talking about is really taking that whole body, mind, body, and spirit approach to endometriosis. Now, this is something I've talked about a lot before, the idea that endometriosis is a full body disease. It is not just a reproductive disease like it is kind of painted to be. And that's really why we need to look at it from a holistic perspective. And when we're talking holistic, what I really mean by that is that we're looking at your entire body, but we're also looking at your unique experience as a human being. It all matters, right? It's not just about your physical body. You're not two separate things. Well, maybe you are. I don't I don't really know. None of us do. I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of that. But what I will be talking about today is just that idea that you do need to be approaching endo from that whole body perspective. So today we will be looking at the importance of that mind, body, and spirit approach to endometriosis. Now, fair warning, some of this may sound a little woo-woo. It's not all super based in science, although there have been studies around some of this stuff more and more these days. But I encourage you just to keep an open mind, right? Because after all, what harm can it do? And I know some of you out there are probably already on board with all of this stuff. For some of you, it may be kind of a first introduction to some of the mind and spirit approaches here. So if you're new to that, or maybe you're even new to some of the more physical stuff, right? Whatever it is, I hope that you have some takeaways that can be helpful for you along your endo journey. And again, I encourage you just to go into this episode with an open mind, right? Okay, so let's dive in and let's start by talking about the body piece of it, because I think that's the part that just feels more concrete to most people. It feels like the simplest place to start. And of course, it's something that I talk about a lot in general anyway. So let's dive into that. And we have really dug in deep on some of these pieces in previous episodes. So some of those I will link to in the show notes if you want to know more about certain aspects. But I would like to kind of give an overview of how to best support your physical body when it comes to endometriosis. So for starters, I would definitely recommend thinking about your diet and your nutrients, right? That includes eating a whole food diet, getting plenty of nutrients into your body just from a wide variety of foods, and supplementing, of course, when needed as well. Now, I'm not going to go super in depth on what you should be eating because we just did that in episode 34, which I will link to in the show notes. And you also can download that guide that I was talking about, the ultimate guide to building your own endometriosis diet. So it's all about what to eat, but also about making it work for you and your unique self. So I'll link to that in the show notes as well so that you can get more insight on that if you're just wondering how to even get started on feeding yourself when you have endometriosis. We also have other aspects of your physical health, right? Thinking about like actual tactile physical care for your body, which can vary from person to person, but that can include things like pelvic floor physical therapy or physical therapy in general, maybe for some people, massage, acupuncture, some of those actual hands-on approaches, some of those hands-on techniques that can be really beneficial for your body in various ways, depending on what you may need, right? And when we're talking supporting your physical body, that definitely also includes your own physical movement, right? Which I'm talking exercise / just movement in and of itself, right? Movement doesn't have to necessarily mean hardcore exercise. It can just mean moving your body, right? It all depends on where you are. That can look just like gentle movement, like taking walks, gentle stretching, yoga, things like that. It doesn't necessarily need to be hard workouts. And this might even vary from day to day, week to week, based on how you're feeling, even based on where you are in your cycle, right? Because if you are, for example, in your luteal phase, that late luteal phase right before your period starts, you may feel up to doing a whole lot less than you are during the time that you're ovulating, for example, when your body tends to have more energy or leading up to ovulation. So those are definitely things to consider. We're not going to go super in depth on cycle syncing, but we actually are going to have an episode on that coming up very soon. So be sure to subscribe so you can stay tuned for that. But I think it is important to know that movement is so needed and necessary for digestion, for your blood sugar management, for stress management, for proper blood flow into the areas of your body that you want blood to flow well. There's so many benefits to physical movement, so definitely incorporating that in some fashion into your day-to-day life is going to be super important. And a few other things to consider for your body, which again, I'm kind of just going to touch on today because we have gone pretty in depth on I'm going to say all of this stuff on previous episodes and definitely will on more episodes coming up. So feel free to go back and just binge some episodes if you want to really dig into this stuff. But other considerations when it comes to supporting your physical body are going to include things like supporting your gut health, which includes your digestion as well as just keeping your microbiome in balance. That's actually really important for supporting your overall inflammation and all of that good stuff. Also, things like balancing your blood sugar, keeping a balance in your minerals and nutrients in your body. These are all things that I help guide my clients through in my one-on-one work, through my Thrive with Endo program that I work through all of this stuff with people. So again, if that's something that you're interested, you can find out more about that in the show notes as well, but just some things to consider that your body may need some support with. Now, that's a lot just in and of itself, and I know I kind of just touched on that stuff today because, like I said, this is not the episode for going super in depth on what all of that means. We definitely have unpacked that before and will continue to unpack all of that in the future. What I really wanted to focus on today is just that mind, body, and spirit approach. So that kind of covers generally the how to support your physical body when it comes to endometriosis, which is absolutely important. And goodness knows we talk about that stuff a lot on this podcast. The message I really wanted to get across today is just the idea that it's not everything, right? That's a huge piece of the puzzle, but it's not everything. There are so many layers when it comes to your healing. So one example that I wanted to use when it comes to that, I'm going to kind of combine the mind and spirit here because those two things, really work hand in hand. So we're going to touch on all of those things today. But one of the things in that camp that I think is really, again, a tangible example is stress. All of us, I'm sure, have experienced stress in your life. If you haven't, God bless you, and please let us know your secrets. But I think that's a pretty across-the-board thing that we all have experienced stress, maybe even more so when you have a chronic illness like endometriosis. But the important thing I wanted to talk about today is just that stress has huge impacts on your body. And I think it's something that really is underrated, the amount of impact that stress has on your body and also the stress management techniques. It's something that I feel like many of us kind of gloss over because it maybe doesn't feel like a super big priority in your life to think about, to spend time on, to prioritize. But I would like to play devil's advocate on that. I know we're all busy and have a lot going on, but honestly, that's all the more reason that stress management has to be a priority in your life. And trust me, I get it. I'm a business owner and a wife and have a lot going on in my life, and it can be challenging, absolutely, to find time for some of this stuff and really carve it in. But I'm also a big believer that your time is what you make it. And anything that really matters to you, you're going to find time for it. You're going to create the time and the space for that. And that's what I really encourage you to do. And we're going to talk about some techniques for how to manage your stress. But first of all, I wanted to talk a little bit about just the physiological impacts of stress on your body, which are huge. In fact, I really could probably do a whole episode just on that, on how stress impacts your body. I'm not going to go super deep on that today because I wanted to focus more on strategies to help with that rather than just the impacts that it has on your body. But I will say that stress has major impacts on your blood sugar and your adrenals in particular, which in turn is going to directly impact your hormone health, your estrogen and progesterone levels and all of that stuff that we need in order to feel our best and live our best lives. Now, I did do a full episode on the impacts of blood sugar and adrenals on your hormones in episode 21, which I can link to in the show notes as well. This is going to be a busy show notes today, but that's okay. But I think it's important to note just that stress directly impacts your blood sugar. Like actually, if you were to wear a continuous glucose monitor, you would actually see on paper that when you're experiencing a more stressful situation, you will actually see spikes in your blood sugar. And that's because your body reacts in a very similar way to internal stress of some kind, or I should say external stressors, things that are bothering you from the outside looking in, right? Your traffic and relationships and work and all the things that you have going on. Your body really interprets that very similarly to the way that it interprets a blood sugar emergency, which is also a form of stress on your body, meaning you let your blood sugar drop way too low, or you ate, too many donuts and your blood sugar spiked too high, either of which is a blood sugar emergency and causes stress on your body. So it's so interesting because blood sugar is a source of internal stress, right? When that blood sugar is out of balance, but also stress directly impacts the level of your blood sugar because just naturally, if your body's under stress, your body wants to help to bring things back into balance and also prepare for that fight or flight, right? So if your body's experiencing stress from those external stressors, naturally it's going to want to raise your blood sugar up to help to give you that energy for if you need to run away or fight or something like that. So that's where that stress can directly impact your blood sugar. It's your body's way of managing that. And of course, if that's happening a lot over time, that can have major implications further down the line in your body. And that's just one example. Stress also has huge impacts on things like your nutrient levels. Stress actually causes your body to burn through nutrients like magnesium and zinc, which are really essential for endo warriors, but just for people in general. Those are really essential nutrients that we need. And stress actually also directly impacts your immune health, which is also super important for endo. I've done an episode on that as well. Basically, stress impacts everything, and I'm sure you can feel it. I think most of us have experienced that where when you're stressed, you're not feeling well, or maybe you're under a really stressful situation and then all of a sudden you get sick, which is very common. That's because stress has these wide-ranging impacts on your body. So, most importantly, what can we do about it? We can carve out the time for stress management. So it's all the things that we may not make time for on the regular. Things like movement, which in my opinion is really the number one thing when it comes to stress management. And there's a reason for that. So once upon a time, we had to deal as humans with many more physical threats than we do nowadays, right? Nowadays, our stressors tend to be more mental than physical, right? Again, using the examples of work and relationships and things like that. And so what happens a lot of times is that we're just, let's say you're working on your computer, which is how many of us work these days. You're in a stressful situation and then, okay, work day is over, so I'm going to shut down the computer and then I'm going to sit on the couch and watch TV. Well, you may be physically out of that stressful situation, but your body doesn't know it because once upon a time when the threats around us used to be much more physical. Things like a lion chasing you, as an example, kind of that classic example. What would we do when that happened? Well, we would run. We would run away from that lion. And so that would tell your body that something's happening. Your heart starts racing. Your adrenals start pumping out that adrenaline. And then we would stop running because the threat is over. Maybe we climbed a tree and got away from it. Actually, I think lions can climb trees. I don't know. Doesn't matter. We somehow got away from the lion. And then your heart rate settles down and it sends signals to your brain that it's okay to stop releasing those stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. Well, what happens nowadays is that we often don't do that part. right? We experience a stressful situation and then we just continue to sit there and think about it, and we never really complete that stress cycle. So I'm not saying you have to go for a run every time you're stressed out unless that's something that works well for you, but definitely movement of some kind helps to send that signal to your body that it's okay, right? And that can be going on a walk, that can be having a dance party in your living room. It doesn't have to be formal exercise like going to the gym unless, again, that's something that works really well for you, in which case, go for it. But incorporating physical movement, prioritizing physical movement is really important for completing that stress cycle, because we're all going to have stress, right? My recommendation is not going to be, hey, why don't you remove all the stress from your life? Because that's probably not going to be possible. Although if there are certain sources of stress that you can do something about, I highly recommend doing it whenever possible. But when we do experience stress and come across stress, it's more a matter of helping your body to come back into balance afterwards, to come back out of that stress response. That's the part that's really important. So definitely movement is key when it comes to that. And we already talked about many of the other benefits of movement. So it's really a wide-ranging reason that we should be moving our bodies, right? And prioritizing that, carving out time for that. But there are other strategies as well that can be beneficial, in my opinion, in conjunction with movement, right? Meditation is one that I believe is really key. It allows you to take time to calm down, to sit quietly with yourself, which can be hard. Let's be real, right? It's not always easy to sit there quietly because our brains are going. We have all these thoughts. Maybe there are certain thoughts that we don't want to focus on. Maybe it's hard just to sit still for a period of time. I actually have been a yoga and meditation instructor for probably 12 plus years at the time I'm recording this. And I will admit that I struggle with that myself sometimes still. It's normal, right? So if that's something that's hard for you, know that that's okay. But I do encourage you to give it a try in some fashion or another, right? What I like to do is first thing in the morning, before I've allowed myself to get busy with anything else going on, is just prioritizing a meditation and just taking that time to sit down. And that can look different ways for different people. It doesn't have to be an exact way. If you find a way of meditating that works well for you, great. Maybe you just sit down and focus on your breath. Maybe you focus on a particular mantra, which is just a phrase or word that you repeat in your mind, and that can be anything that resonates with you. Maybe you use a guided meditation. There are so many out there. I really like the app Insight Timer is the one that I really liked. I know there's others out there like Calm and Headspace is another one. There's a few apps out there that are really helpful as well if you like to just listen to something and have someone guide you through a meditation, especially if you're kind of new to it. And I would also really recommend start simple. You don't need to sit down and meditate for an hour, although if you can, awesome. I'm sure that would be super beneficial. But maybe just start with 5 minutes. I promise you can find 5 minutes in your day. Even if you think you can't. I know I thought that for a long time. I have to just wake up and get straight to work because I have so much to do. Trust me, I get it. But carve out time and space to take those few minutes because it really has enormous benefits on your overall health. Some other strategies that you can use include journaling, right? If you like to write, or even if you don't like to write, it can just be a brain dump. Nobody else ever has to see this, just to kind of let things out and see what's going on with your mind and just be able to kind of let it all go, so to speak. Have a place for those thoughts to go to, right? So journaling, you can certainly use journal prompts, which you can find tons of online, or just write. Just let your mind go crazy, right? Fill up that space. Or just anything else that you feel like really fills your cup. Do you love spending time in nature? Do you love spending time with loved ones, friends? Are there certain people that really make you feel great when you spend time with them? Do you love spending time with your fur babies? I love my puppy snuggles myself, right? Doing yoga, which kind of also check off that movement box. There's so many different things. Maybe you like just taking a nice hot bath and relaxing in that. there's so many different methods for managing your stress, but what I really encourage you to do is just, out of all those strategies you just heard, or maybe there's other ones that I didn't mention that really resonate with you. I'm sure this is not a comprehensive list of every stress management technique that has ever existed, but make a plan to prioritize even one of those things. Maybe you don't incorporate, movement and meditation and journaling and spending time with nature and loved ones and fur babies and yoga all at once. That's a bit much. But pick one or maybe two of those that really resonates with you or something that you'd like to give a try and add it into your day-to-day routine. Now, in addition to just that stress management, and I think of them even as stress releasing activities, is mindset work. And this is something that, again, I think is really underrated in our world. In fact, it's often, I think, maybe not frowned upon, but kind of, I certainly see eye rolls around this. But it's something that I have really been working on, especially in the last, I would say, past year and a half or so, that I've really been focusing in on mindset work. And I'm not going to, again, go super, super deep on this today, but it is something that I really fully believe in. And so I had to mention it in today's episode. And there are so many wonderful thought leaders out there who really guide people on mindset work. So you could certainly connect with some of the people out there if you find somebody who really resonates with you. If you want some ideas on that, just send me a DM on Instagram at endobellygirl, and I'm happy to send you some resources on that. But what I really wanted to talk about today is just the idea that your words and your thoughts matter. They all carry energy, right? It's one of those things, and I'm not going to, again, go super deep on that stuff today, but I am a believer in the law of attraction and the idea that our thoughts and our words and our intentions and our mindset, it all has a lot to do with what ends up appearing in the world around us. And this isn't about blame or anything like that, because just that alone, just the word blame really comes with a negative connotation. But it's really more about, in this moment in time, and of course, moving forward in your life, on really being intentional and aware of the thoughts that are going on and the words that we use out loud when we're talking to people, because all of that matters and it does help to shape the world around us, right? And I'm sure you can see this with other people. Like, for example, when I see two people who are really close friends, especially if it's not with myself, like somebody outside of myself, I see like two best friends, I think it's often very easy to see why they're friends, right? Like they're on a very similar wavelength, they have similar energy about them, they speak maybe in a similar way, have similar ideas, and it's very clear why they were attracted to each other. Sometimes within, romantic couples, you can kind of see the same thing. And it's not necessarily about being the same person, right? Because I know we all have, things that offset each other and balance each other out, right? Like my husband and I are not by any means the same person. There are many things about us that are very different. We definitely balance each other out in many ways, but as far as just kind of our general wavelength and energy, we are in many ways very much on the same page. Now, one thing that I think is really, really key, especially when you're struggling with a chronic illness and you maybe have a lot of pain and fatigue and all the symptoms that come along with that, one concept that I would love for you all to walk away with an awareness of today is something called the negativity bias. And what that really means is that our brains are wired to see negativity first, meaning we're focusing on the things that are going wrong around us. And again, this often goes back to how humans used to live, right? It used to be much more necessary to be aware of that, right? To see those negative things around you because you needed that in order to survive. Nowadays, that's not quite as necessary, but our brains often still get stuck in that mindset, right? Where we just have that negativity bias. So what I really encourage you to do, and something that I've definitely been working on, it's definitely still a practice for myself. I will not claim to be perfect at it, but something I've been working on is intentionally noticing the positive stuff. So one thing that I've been doing, this is actually something that my husband and I have been doing together for, I don't know, probably at least 6 months or so at the time that I'm recording this, where we actually have a little conversation every single night right before we go to bed, and we talk about the things that went really well that day, the positive things, right? We look at each other and one of us will start the conversation and just say, "What was your good stuff today?" And we'll have a little conversation around the good stuff so that we intentionally are noticing that. And we like to do it with each other just because it allows us to be very intentional about that and make sure that we are doing that on a day-to-day basis. We kind of hold each other accountable. But you could definitely do this in the form of journaling or just as you lay down in bed at night, kind of going back through your day, however it works best for you. And I also like to just take a moment of gratitude. This is something that I do kind of more internally. So after we say goodnight and, lay down in bed, I'll lay there and just close my eyes for a second and just say a moment of gratitude. Definitely for my physical body, that's a big part of it. Just thank you for healing. Thank you for supporting me throughout the day. And just gratitude for anything that might come to mind as I'm doing this practice. And at the same time, just throughout my day, I've been trying to be really aware of doing my best to avoid that negative self-talk, negative talk about other people, right? Complaining or gossiping about other people, complaining, or just generally spiraling into negativity, blaming, all of these things, right? I've been trying to be really aware of that. And again, I'm by no means perfect at this stuff, but I've been working on it and trying to adjust both my thoughts and words that I'm speaking out loud, and just really tuning in more than anything onto how that conversation or thought makes me feel. Because that's really one of the key pieces of that, is just how that stuff makes you feel. Because I know I've experienced recently, sitting down and having a conversation with somebody about somebody else, kind of complaining about somebody else. And afterwards, I just feel yucky. It doesn't make me feel good at the end of the day. So I've been trying to be really aware of that stuff. Definitely that negative self-talk. And that includes negative talk about my body, about the way that I feel, anything, right? Which I know, again, can definitely be a challenge when you have a chronic illness, but really working on that mindset stuff can be huge. So maybe start to be aware of that this week, just kind of taking a look at your thoughts and conversations that you're having, all of that, and just see if you can start to make some little adjustments here and there and see what happens. And in addition to that, one other thing that I've been working on in my world is just being aware of everything that I'm consuming, books that I read, TV and shows that I watch, movies that I watch, anything that I'm putting in front of me, that I'm taking into my energy field, and kind of noticing, okay, how does that, again, make me feel, right? For example, I don't watch murder shows. I don't watch scary movies, things that just make me feel jumpy and wired. I don't even really watch the news because it's just such a crazy hit of negativity. Not to say that I don't get any news, right? There's other ways of doing it. I just don't choose to watch the news. And that's a conscious decision that I make. So just thinking about things like that. And the other piece of it, and this can totally be personalized to you and your own personal beliefs, but I find it to be a really beautiful thing to have some kind of connection to something bigger than yourself. Whether you think of that as the universe or spirit or God or Mother Earth or whatever you may call it, whatever resonates with you depending on your unique life and upbringing and beliefs, whatever that is. But for many people, connecting with that something bigger than yourself can really have huge benefits to your overall mental well-being. So if that something resonates with you, great. If not, that's okay. You can take it or leave it, whatever works for you. And I also want to say that when it comes to a mind, body, and spirit approach, just know that sometimes you may need more of one than another. And it's okay to kind of think of that in phases and pieces. It doesn't, everything that I'm talking about today, it's not like you have to jump in and do all of this at once. That's a lot. Maybe you find as you're listening to this, there were certain pieces that really resonated with you that you feel like, yeah, I feel like I really need that. I can incorporate that into my life. Let's go. And I also really encourage you to not overwhelm yourself, right? Keep it simple, especially if you're one of those people who's a bit of a perfectionist. Don't worry, I get it. Recovering perfectionist over here myself. And you hear all the things and you want to do all the things right. I get it. But it doesn't mean you need to do it all at once or even do it all at all, right? Again, it's your unique journey. It's your unique healing process. And it's a matter of just figuring out what works best for you. And also, if trying to do all the things is going to cause you stress, then we're just back to square one. So keep it simple. Build one habit and then another and then another. One little step at a time. Baby steps are totally fine. Like I said, 5-minute meditation. Cool. If that's all you do this week, awesome. You did a great job. I really like the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. If you need a book on or some ideas on building habits and how to actually keep some of this stuff going instead of having it be a one-time thing because you listen to this podcast episode and then you forget about it after that. So I really like that book as a resource. So again, it's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. One other reminder for today is just that this is all about bioindividuality. That's something that I talk about a lot, which is just the idea of figuring out what works best for your unique body and your life right now. And a big part of that, I think, is just listening to our own intuition. It's something that I think we're not as encouraged to do these days, but I really encourage you to start to tune into that. And, for me, that's where meditation and journaling really pay off. That's just my take. I feel like it really helps me to kind of tune in with my own intuition, my own internal guidance system. But you do you. You do what works for you, my friend. But I do encourage you just to sit down, take some time this week to sit quietly with yourself and just investigate what you really need most right now and focus on that, one step at a time. Now, this is all stuff that we are going to talk about and work on within the Endo Warrior Circle, the mind, the body, the spirit, all of the things. I'm going to have pre-recorded materials that you can access anytime, which that library is going to be building over the long haul, as well as some live calls where we can actually connect with each other and get to know each other and have conversations around this stuff. And goodness knows, I just can't tell you how valuable that is. I have some groups that I have connected with myself, not even necessarily for endometriosis, just even fellow nutrition practitioners that I've connected with and different things, or friends in my quote unquote real life in person, right? That has been so valuable for me just to be able to connect with other humans. And so that's why I wanted to create this for all of you as well. We'll definitely be incorporating some yoga and meditation since I have a huge background in that, if that's something that resonates with you. But anyway, you can join the waitlist in the show notes. Doors will officially be opening in June, so I can't wait to see you in there. All right, my friend, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoy and are able to incorporate a little bit of that mind, body, and spirit approach in your own healing journey. And I hope you have the most wonderful day. Talk soon, my friend. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you loved what you heard, be sure to leave a review, share with a friend, and subscribe so you can keep coming back for more. If you are ready to take the next step toward getting to the root of your endo symptoms like endo belly, pain, fatigue, and so much more, you need to take my Endo Reset free course. You can find the link in the show notes or at www.endobellygirl.com. Till next time, my friend.